Have you ever felt so engrossed in a book that reality began to blur with fiction? I, Laura, know exactly what that's like. I spent months devouring every line of the book of Revelation, every prophecy, every description of a world in ruins. With each page turned, a new image formed in my mind. So vivid that sometimes I wondered if I wasn't witnessing it all firsthand. Little did I know that what was to follow would be far more real and terrifying than anything I could have read. The Whisper of Revelation. I fell asleep, exhausted, with the book still resting on my chest. The last thing I read was about the opening of the seals and the judgments that would be poured out upon the earth. That night, between fatigue and obsession, the veil between the living world and the unknown dissolved. And then the dream began. It wasn't a common dream with blurry images and diffuse sensations. It was a revelation. Every detail was sharp, every sound cutting, every smell nauseating. I was an observer, a soul floating over an earth writhing in agony. And if you have the courage, brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you might change your perspective on the end. The unleashed horror. The sky, once blue, was stained with a sickly blood red, sprinkled with dark clouds that looked like open sores. An incessant tremor shook the ground, toppling buildings like sandcastles. But what stole my breath and made my heart race wasn't the material destruction. It was the sight of what came next. First, a shadow. A dark stain that emerged from the depths of the earth, tearing through asphalt and rocks with disturbing ease. It rose, taking shape, growing, distorting into something that defied all human logic or comprehension. The creature had skin that looked like carbonized scales, eyes that burned like hellish embers, and twisted horns that rose toward the reddish sky. Its claws, long and sharp, tore through the air with a hissing sound. And it wasn't just one. Soon, dozens, hundreds, thousands of them began to sprout from the earth, from the sea, from the very air. They were demons. The panic was instantaneous, visceral. The streets, once crowded with people living their daily lives, transformed into a whirlwind of terror. Cars collided, sirens wailed incessantly, and screams, oh, the screams, echoed everywhere. People ran, but where to? There was nowhere to run. The appearance of the demons was so abominable that the human mind could barely process it. Some were colossal beasts with mouths full of sharp teeth, multiple eyes, and twisted tails that whipped the air with lethal force. Others, more subtle, hovered like shapeless specters, their evil auras sending shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to look at them. There were those with membranous wings, flying over the ruined cities, casting oppressive shadows and releasing a stench of sulfur and death that suffocated the atmosphere. The terror wasn't just physical. I could feel the despair radiating from people's souls. They weren't just afraid of death, they were afraid of what those creatures represented. The face of evil had materialized, and humanity was being confronted with its worst nightmares. The torment of humanity. I saw the demons not just killing, but tormenting. They reveled in the terror of others. One demonic being, with a face twisted into a cruel smile, held a man by the neck, not to kill him immediately, but to prolong his agony, whispering unspeakable horrors into his ear as his eyes widened in fright.
Another, with pulsing tentacles, enveloped a woman, not crushing her, but slowly squeezing her, enjoying every scream and every tear. Children cried, and the sound of their despair was like music to the ears of those abominations. I saw mothers trying to protect their children with their own bodies, only to be mercilessly torn apart. There was no order, no logic, just pure, unbridled wickedness. The few who tried to fight were effortlessly crushed. Their weapons, their shouts of defiance, were useless. Those beings were not made of flesh and bone. They seemed to be made of solidified nightmares, of pure hatred. The fall of civilization. Entire cities became infernal landscapes. Fire consumed skyscrapers, and the smell of smoke and burning flesh permeated the air. The roads were impassable, covered with debris and inert bodies. Social order collapsed in a matter of minutes. Law, morality, everything crumbled before the manifestation of that indescribable horror. People, once proud of their civilization and advancements, were reduced to cornered animals. They sought refuge in underground tunnels, in ruined churches, anywhere that offered them a minimum of shelter. But the demons seemed omnipresent, their guttural voices and distorted laughter echoing from every corner. I saw hopelessness take over the eyes of the survivors. Faith was fading. Hope was extinguished. There were no heroes, no apparent salvation. The earth as we knew it was becoming a hell, and humanity was the fuel. The icy awakening. The final scene of the dream was the most terrifying of all. I was floating over a valley where thousands of demons gathered. In the center, there was a being of even greater proportions, radiating an aura of power and evil so intense that I felt my own soul tremble. Its eyes, pits of darkness, turned to me, and for an instant, I felt that it saw me, that it knew of my presence. A chilling shudder ran through my body. I woke up with a jolt, the scream stuck in my throat. The room was dark and silent, but the feeling of dread persisted. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would tear through my chest. I was sweating, trembling, and the images of the demons were burned into my mind. They weren't just images, they were sensations, smells, sounds. The book of Revelation was still on my bed, and suddenly every word seemed to have taken on a new and terrifying weight. What I read on paper was now a vivid experience, a premonition, a warning. Since that night, my worldview has changed. The dream was so real, so disturbing, that I can't view it as a simple wandering of the mind. I feel like I witnessed something, a small window into a future that, however distant it may seem, lurks in the shadows. And now that you know what I saw, tell me, can you still sleep peacefully? Can you still look at the sky and see only clouds? Or do you notice the shadows lurking? Because I, Laura, after that dream, could never ignore the whisper of the end. And the question that haunts me is, are we truly prepared when the demons manifest and panic takes over? Think about it.